Hey super friends, my name is Neil and I'm here to talk to you about the first 2 episodes of Disney Plus and Marvel Studios' Hawkeye. The series streams these first 2 episodes from tomorrow, which is November the 24th, and then we'll roll out a further 4 episodes across the rest of this month and into December. The series stars Jeremy Renner, Haley Steinfeld, Florence Pugh will turn up at some point maybe. It's also starring Tony Dalton, Vera Farmiga and Linda Cardellini. So, we've seen 2 episodes, and from here on out will be some mild spoilers, nothing too major, because I don't want to ruin the surprise for you when you get to watch it from tomorrow. So the first episode brings us nicely into the world of Kate Bishop, who is kind of the focus in episode 1. Clint is there, but he's very much kind of second fiddle because we already know him, we know his backstory, we know where he is in the world. We need to be introduced to Kate, so we start off with part of her family history, which is set during a very important time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, before jumping to the present day, where we meet her as a college student and, well, how do I want to say this? Let's say an accomplished archer who is prone to some slightly rash behaviour, maybe, should we say? There's an amazing opening credit sequence with a theme which is by Christoph Beck, who some of you might know from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is where he kind of made his name. He does this really cool, almost Bond-esque intro, which plays over a really nice animated sequence that kind of catches up on what happens to Kate from when she is a child to where we meet her in the present day. Once we've met her in the present day, we get time to catch up with Clint and find out what he's doing, which is where the absolutely amazing Rogers the Musical gets brought in. And for those of you who've been really anticipating this based on what's in the trailer, you do get just one, but you do get one full song from Rogers the Musical to enjoy in all its glory, with all of its singing and dancing and wonderful casting. Clint is maybe a little bit less sold on Rogers the Musical, but it serves as a really nice reintroduction to point out where he is emotionally, particularly based on what's happened through Infinity War and Endgame. And what's important to remember here is that this is Clint who has lost Natasha and has been through everything that we've seen throughout the entire of this story. So he is a little, I guess, beleaguered is the way to put it, but is also loving spending time with his family. Whereas for Kate, it's about coming back to New York and dealing with family in a very different way. So the two of them, although they don't meet until the very end of this episode, the two of them are dealing with very similar family stories in a way, just from different angles. We get to spend a lot of time with Clint and his kids, which is also really, really nice. And it's important to remember that this series is set at Christmas, and it very much has that Christmas feel to it. This is the kind of show that you might want to return to as an annual Christmas sort of Marvel event. In many ways, it kind of evokes the sort of same feelings as maybe watching Home Alone or other classic Christmas-themed movies and TV, in that it really does evoke the sense of the holidays, whilst also telling a story which is relevant to any time of year, as it was. The fact that it's Christmas is just coincidental to the story. So within this episode, we kind of get an adventure for Kate. She immediately finds out that her family circumstances have changed once she arrives, which is all part of what's tied in with her mum, who I'm going to have to look at the character name, which I realise is bad. So that is Vera Farmiga's Eleanor Bishop. Eleanor has a new family situation which Kate is none too happy with, and that is where we involve Tony Dalton's character, Jack. And so there is some, let's say, so there's some friction there, which is what leads Kate into a situation where she ends up with, I will say, an item, which is very important to Clint. And that is kind of the beginning of the two characters circling each other. There is some strong ties between the two of them before they have met. They have sort of been in each other's company before, but I won't go into that too much because it's too much of a spoiler for what happens in the opening scene to the episode. But suffice to say, she is aware of him and has very much inspired her journey to become a martial artist and an archer and everything that she is when we find her in the present day. Whereas he is, I guess, in some ways searching for a bit of meaning in his life and trying to reconcile the fact that during the whole Infinity War Endgame period, he was using the Ronin, what's the word I want to use here? He's using the Ronin name and the Ronin kind of persona as a way to fight crime. And all of that is what brings us to a point where the Tracksuit Mafia, a group of Russian mobsters in New York, come into the story. Kate is now known to them through some of her actions in this episode, and they come hunting for her. And it's when they come hunting for her that she finally crosses paths with Clint. Which leads us beautifully into the second episode, which, again, I'm going to try and keep this to a spoiler minimum, but the two are kind of reluctantly working together based on her actions, meaning that she is now in the crosshairs of the Tracksuit Mafia, and that they now have the item that he kind of wants to get hold of. Well, actually, I say that. The item that he wants to get hold of is now kind of floating around New York, as it were, and he is trying to get it back. They are trying to find the person who they think is the owner of said item. I've probably given it away at this point. So that leads them to kind of go their separate ways slightly. It allows Kate to explore more of her family scenario and the situation with Jack, which she is not trusting of him based on what she's seen of him in the first episode. Whereas Clint gets to have a bit more of a kind of comedic second episode based on where he ends up and what he has to do in order to get the thing that he is searching for. And so these two episodes really do work hand in hand as a sort of two-part pilot for this. It sets the scene, it brings the world together, brings the characters together, introduces Kate and the elements from her world, and leaves us in a position where we can kind of get down to the action moving forwards. We also do get the introduction of a villain who may or may not be getting their own spin-off show based on what happens in this. So if you've been following any of the news around that potential show, then you'll understand how that character is woven in by the time you get to the end of episode 2. I'm going to pause there on the story because I don't want to give any more away. Let's talk about casting here. So obviously Clint we've known for years now, ever since his appearance in Thor and then major appearance obviously in the first Avengers. It's nice to see that he gets to do his own thing now. I am one of the people who would have liked to have seen maybe something around him prior to this. Maybe not a TV series, I maybe would have said a film, but now that we have this Marvel TV universe on Disney Plus, this does feel like the perfect place for him. It's great that they've been able to bring back all of the actors that play his kids, and it's really nice to add that emotionality to the character, that we get to see him be a father before we get to see him be a hero in this story. And it's also nice that they've been able to bring Linda Cardellini back as his wife, because for a long time it appeared she may not be in the show just because she was busy filming a Netflix series at the same time. So with everyone back together, albeit maybe not necessarily in the same place, there is some really great family stuff for Clint. And what we get in these first 2 episodes is really meaningful. There are things which have changed for his character based on the events that have been going on in the MCU at the same time, which have really impacted on him. And the show gives it plenty of time for that to resonate in the story, which is really, really nice. Now, Kate. Hailee Steinfeld, as we've just learned from Kevin Feige, did not have to audition for this role. They wanted her, they reached out to her, and she said yes. And I'm really happy to say she is absolutely, and this is a bad pun, but she is pitch perfect in this show. She is a brilliant Kate. The flashback sequence at the beginning of the first episode really does add some nice context to her character, so you understand her motivations when you meet her in the present day. That certainly helps to make her more of an identifiable character than maybe had that been missing. And then when you do meet her, you immediately understand what her skill set is, but also her mentality and her kind of sense of humour. There's a very, very dry wit to her, which Steinfeld is able to play absolutely perfectly. And what's immediately clear from when she meets Clint is that both Jeremy Renner and Hailee Steinfeld have a great bond together as well. So the two of them work incredibly well on screen. And again, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it, but she is an absolute firecracker in this show and is going to be a brilliant, brilliant character throughout the rest of the MCU once they introduce her character to others in this wider world. Vera Farmiga as her mum, I mean, anybody that knows me knows that I'm a huge fan of Bates Motel and also the Conjuring movies, so I love Vera Farmiga anyway, but she is also really well cast in this. There's a warmth to her as a mother in, again, the opening flashback, which then plays through the present day scenes to show that really there is a warmth there, but at the same time there is something else bubbling underneath that means she could potentially be involved with something dodgy that's going on here. We don't know based on these 2 episodes. But with someone like Vera Farmiga, she's able to carry off both kind of sides of the character perfectly. The maternal side and the kind of the head of Bishop Security. There is that entrepreneurial businesswoman side to her that plays really, really well. Tony Dalton as Jack is an interesting character. So as I said, this really does play into the whole kind of Christmas theme of Hawkeye, of the show, of just this period in which this was being released. And he in his own sort of slightly tongue-in-cheek way, is a mustache-twirling villain, mainly because he actually has a mustache, which I believe he does twirl at one point within these 2 episodes. We don't know if he is part of the kind of villainous side of this story, but at the same time, he is certainly a suspect, and his actions and the way that Dalton plays this really plays into that incredibly well. I don't want to say too much beyond that about casting because I don't want to spoil things too much. Let's talk about the dog. The dog is absolutely amazing. There are a couple of harrowing scenes for the dog before he is rescued by Kate. So anybody that is not a huge fan of maybe animal violence might want to look away around 37.5 minutes into the first episode. But nonetheless, he is a brilliant character and I can't wait to see more of him. Special effects and everything else are absolutely what you would expect from a Marvel Cinematic Universe project. There is a lot of heavy green screen work and CGI work in the opening flashback, and that is probably where much of the budget for this episode went. Other than that, it's very ground level, and it's very hand to hand. It's very fisticuffs, and that works really well. So there's a lot of stunt work. Hailee Steinfeld herself gets a lot of action, which she's able to carry off really, really well, and it's all really authentic to the Marvel Universe. And this is almost maybe a bit more Daredevil in a way. Not that I wish to give away any spoilers. In the way that it's more hand-to-hand and it's more street level, which kind of fits the New York setting, as it were. That is kind of how Marvel works really well in this TV New York setting. Score, as I already touched upon with the opening theme, is absolutely brilliant. Again, it evokes the Christmas feel as well as evoking a sense of Marvel. There is a scene which may be slightly Avengers-esque, which features some Avengers-esque music, but maybe not the exact theme. And it all fits together really well as one great package. I think that's probably all I want to say without giving away spoilers. So for now, stream the first 2 episodes of Hawkeye on Disney Plus from November the 24th, 2021, and then watch the rest of the series as it rolls out weekly after that. Let me know what you think of these first 2 episodes in the comments below, and do not forget to hit the subscribe button and ring that bell for when we get new videos. Bye! Thanks for watching, Super Friends. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button just down below and hit the bell so that you can get notified whenever we release brand new videos. In fact, there's 2 more waiting for you to watch right here below. So what are you waiting for? Why not click play?